What's up, guys? Today we are going to be critiquing WheatWaffles face ratings.
So after all of this is said and done, I'm going to be giving him a final rating of 8 out of 10. In my opinion.
So he's good looking. Now on my scale, like if we look at this bottom image, I'd put him at like 6.75. I think he varies from a top 5% face to a top 2% face in that range.
Quite comfortably falls into the Chad category. And I know already I'm going to get in the comments people saying that he's a 7. I think he still has the majority of his attractive features to warrant giving him an 8. Like, just take a look at this photo. I think it's obvious that he falls into the...
This just reinforced my point. Actually, the nose tip looks a lot worse here. The hairline looks a lot worse here. No fat under his eyes. Just wrinkles and folds everywhere. This is not an 8 on anyone's scale. I think Chadify wouldn't give this guy an 8, okay? And that's saying something. I think he missed with his overall rating here.
Chad category. And besides, as I've talked about in my previous video,
I'm more of a Chad than this. Alright, now let me chill. But like, seriously, like, dude, no, that's not a Chad.
What I say, you say, or how you analyse, or anything like that. The only thing that matters is what women say and how they treat you. And simply by going to the comments...
This argument is really bad about aesthetics, okay? Because women will treat a 6 on my scale well, because it's a top 20% face. It's like moderately good looking.
...section of any one of his videos, you will see hundreds...
Okay, and you'll see this about Ryan Gosling. Does that make Ryan Gosling a Chad?
...and hundreds of comments from women complimenting him on his appearance.
The absolute cutest. Guys, I want you to imagine a Chad, like Brad Pitt, right? A Chad. I think the word's kind of cringe, but anyways. Think about John Eric Hexum, Henry Cavill. Do they say the cutest? I feel like that's kind of a compliment that's kind of implies like lower dimorphism. Whereas like if it was John Eric Hexum, they'd be like, he's so handsome. You know what I mean? So
telling him how handsome he is and how cute he
handsome
is.
Up there.
In fact, I even found this comment where a woman spoke about how he features in her dreams. Lastly, I'd even go as far to say that this guy, 95% of the reason he has been able to build such a large audience.
Guys, let's be honest. Look at this profile picture. Is that a Chad? He looks good. He does have some dimorphism. He's definitely in the top 5%. But is it a Chad? No.
Is because of his physical attractiveness. Like, I've watched some of his content, his takes are okay, his points aren't bad, but it's nothing crazy and out of this world, and in my opinion, most of the women who follow him are being blinded by...
Yeah, as it turns out, on a platform where you talk to a camera, how you look does matter a lot.
...the halo effect of his looks. Now moving on to person number 2, who is a dating coach.
Well, that profile picture that's a fairy tale right there. That does not depict reality, not even in one bit.
With just under 30,000 subscribers.
Okay, let's be serious here. I would put him at like a 3.5 probably.
Subscribers. Now, this guy doesn't really have any attractive features. Who is a dating coach with just under 30,000 subscribers. Now, this guy doesn't really have any attractive features, so we're just going to jump straight in with the negatives. His biggest issue currently is...
Oh man, his facial fat is terrible, yeah.
...his body fat percentage. And I would estimate his is around 20%, which is just way too high compared with what most women find attractive. And in fact, is almost double compared to what the ideal is of 10 to 12% body fat. This flaw is
9 to 12.
Is also causing 2 more flaws. First, his cheeks have become flat and rounded. And second, it is also causing him to have loose hyoid skin, which is where the skin beneath the jawline droops and sags down, which obviously takes away definition from his jawline. His next largest flaw is his hairline recession. And unlike compared with Matthew, his recession is much more noticeable. Now, I have done a little bit of research I have found out that recently, John has got a hair transplant. Now, I haven't seen the results of this procedure yet.
So why do all the red pill gurus get the most surgeries? Hamza with his autoplasty, John Anthony Lifestyle with his hair transplant. Guys, it's all about his course where he teaches you how to talk to women and seduce them. He teaches you how to convince women to like you with words, right, guys? So why would he get a hair transplant if the reason they like him is for his words? Something to think about.
Transplant. Now, I haven't seen the results of this procedure yet, but compared with other people I've spoken to in the past who have also got a transplant, the results usually are very promising, and I believe is a very good potential solution for balding in males. His next biggest flaw, and this is also loosely tied to his body fat percentage, is that his jawline is way too rounded. So if we take a look at the ideal jawline, it has sharp and defined angles.
Basically the definition of like a normie jaw, essentially.
Making it up. But compared with John Anthony's, his is way too rounded. Next, his face also has a significant amount of asymmetry, and this is particularly noticeable around the nose and his eye.
I think he needs to touch on that maxillary recession and this low facial depth. I mean, that's an extremely flat profile. Wow.
Area. Continuing on from his eyes, he also has significant eye bag deposits beneath them. On top of this, his eyes also appear to be slightly too close set, so ideally your eyes should be roughly one eye's breadth apart from one another. But John's appear to be ever so slightly too close set.
I don't particularly think his eye spacing's a big deal. He has far bigger issues.
Going back to his jawline, his chin to philtrum ratio is too large.
It's abysmal.
And for those who don't know what the philtrum is, it's this tiny little bit of skin here between the nose and the upper lip. The ideal ratio between these two
I think
things.
his features are also very like inherently unattractive. Like I think his nose shape is very poor. His lips almost like look like he has a malocclusion. Just yeah, it's rough. I'd say it's a rough starting point. Though he is like 6'4", so he is that at least.
Is roughly 2.5 to 1. But when we take a look at John Anthony's, his is roughly 2 times that amount at a ratio of 4.5 to 1.
You're measuring with his mouth open. Come on, bro.
Which makes him look like he has a disproportionately large chin. Next feature, the Gonian angle that we've already spoken about.
Though he's correct, it still is a poor ratio.
Ideally should have a steepness of 115 degrees. John Anthony's is too obtuse at 135 degrees.
That measurement's completely off the mark.
Going back to the eyes, he also has too much upper eyelid exposure. This is also...
It's really not much at all, man, but yes, it's not perfect.
Partially causing another flaw, which is the fact that his eyes are too far away from his eyebrows. Whereas ideally, your eyes and eyebrows should be close to one another, giving a dominant and masculine look. Finally, for his eyes, he also has scleral show just above his lower eyelid, which is where the white bit of his eye shows beneath his pupil. And this has the effect of making him look tired. His last two flaws is that his nose is too flat against his face, and similar to Matthew, he also has...
It's not really the nose. I suspect his like nasal width height ratio wouldn't be too bad. However, his maxilla, now that is absolutely incredibly recessed. In fact, let's take a look at his convexity. Okay, it's not perfect, but his convexity is literally negative. Like it's a concave, I don't know what I'm trying to show, but it's a concave profile, as you guys can see. This is severe maxillary recession. It's almost like the stereotypical mouth breather, like poor development face. He does almost look like he is macrogenic, and it almost looks like he has like almost class 3 malocclusion or something. You can see, this is a telltale sign. I mean, if we're being serious, he kind of needs monoblock, which is an insane surgery, but my Photoshop is fucked up, but do you see how his orbit is like just so projected in his skull? Like this part of his skull doesn't grow beyond his orbit. His face, like forward growth as a whole, is extremely low.
Two flaws is that his nose is too flat against his face, and similar to Matthew, he also has the nasolabial folds, which are the creases formed on his cheeks. So after all of this, my final rating for John Anthony is 3 out of 10. And I know a lot of people are going to think that's a harsh rating, but...
I don't think that's harsh, dude. Because when you really look at the side profile, you look at all the flaws. Okay, honestly, I wouldn't put him at a 3. I think a 3, that's Thomas Matthew Crooks level on my scale. He's not a 4. He is below a 4. He is a sub 4, 100%. In this image, in these images, when you factor all this together, and in that video segment of him, that's a sub 4, absolutely.
Rating. But the positive thing is that a lot of these flaws are fixable, and he could definitely reach at least 4, maybe 5 if he started taking care of himself a bit better. Namely, lower
post-hair transplant, 10% body fat, probably submental liposuction, alar tip plasty. I mean, if he like hard maxed, perhaps.
His body fat percentage. Now, before I move on to the next
ideal
person,
is not 12%, by the way. It's closer to 10%.
I just wanted to bring up that still, even to this day, I'm now moving on to person number 3, Hamza Ahmed.
His ear, dude, man, I love Hamza. What a interesting character, man. I also like how he wears a hoodie in his profile picture. Perhaps he was aware of his ear. Well, he got a surgery, obviously he was aware.
As a channel of 100,000 subs specializing in self-improvement, and this guy is in fact one of my favorite channels.
I guess he did self-improve, but...
at the moment. This guy also has a lot of positives going for him.
Dude, that is an insane asymmetry, dude. Holy... Yeah, I mean, I think it was very wise to get an autoplasty. I just think it's scummy that he tried to hide it, and that he advocates for personality improvement when he's the one getting surgeries. He's a scum, but...
In my opinion, his best feature is his jawline, where similar to Matthew, it has great definition and the ideal...
It's okay. Like, if we look at it in reality, it doesn't have that much mass. I mean, the width is good, and like, the jaw frontal angle is good. I just think it's not robust.
Trapezium-shaped jawline that we've already spoken about. Hamza also has a good hairline showing no signs of balding. He has a compact mid-face, which basically measures how close together all of your features are, and the way you measure this is by measuring the distance between the pupils, and then comparing that distance with how close together your eyes are away from your upper lip.
I'm curious to see how he'll analyze his eye region.
And ideally, these two lengths should be equal, a 1-to-1 ratio. Otherwise, your face will appear long, elongated, and horseish. And when we compare these measurements to Hamza, he also has that ideal ratio of 1 to 1.
This may be one of the worst supraorbital rims I've ever seen. And probably the worst supraorbital fat I've ever seen. I sound really mean right now, but it's just like, it's really bad.
Hamza has a great ability to grow facial hair, accentuating his masculine jawline. His eyebrows also have great shape, length, and thickness.
He's overdoing it with the jaw. It's just not all that. But
lastly, his teeth also appear to be in excellent health, with good shape and no gaps. That's it for the positives. Now moving on to some of the negatives. First of all, his eyes aren't deep set enough. They appear to protrude out slightly from his sockets. This gives a buggish appearance. Next, he also has a considerable amount of upper eyelid exposure. I've already spoke about this, so I'm not going to...
That's beyond considerable. I have a considerable amount. This is abysmal.
Repeating myself. Likewise, he also has scleral show, which I've already spoken about. His eyebrows...
He needs a full eye region package. He needs decompression. I would take the risk, man. Pray it again you don't end up like Frank Tufano, but I would get orbital decompression, supraorbital rim implants with fat graft, infraorbital rim implants, lower eyelid retraction repair. He needs the full stack, in my opinion.
Was also too far away from his eyes.
Because it looks sickly. It looks like Graves' disease at the moment.
And finally, also to do with his eyes, and this last flaw is partially responsible for causing each of the ones I just spoke about, is the fact that his eye orbits are too large and rounded, when ideally they should be more horizontal and compact. Moving on to some other flaws is that his nose is a little bit asymmetrical. It's not really that noticeable, nowhere near as bad as John Anthony's. However, it's still noteworthy nonetheless. And finally, I've also noticed that one of his ears is asymmetrical from the other, which I'm not sure...
I don't think it takes an analyst to notice that one.
What the story was about this, whether he was born with it or if it was a result of some kind of accident involving a dog or maybe something else. So after all of this taken into account, I'm going to be rating his facial
Yeah, a dog bit his ear and then it became flared, even though it's something that develops in the womb.
Attractiveness as a 6 out of 10. However, that's...
Let me get serious. What would I rate him? Let's say this guy bought one of my rating packages, which I am honest in this, by the way. I think he can get a 5.5, okay? At the most. I would not permit anything over that, especially with the ear. Like, without the ear, his solid 5.5 probably, like, in motion. I'm inclined to put him at, like, a 5.25, dude. With this eye region and this ear, he's not getting a 6 from me, that's for sure.
Said, SMV-wise, I'm going to be bumping him up to a 7. I mean, the dude is jacked and over 6 foot, and these are definitely factors that you can't ignore. Now, in my experience...
So that's a 7 SMV. What percentile does he propose a 7 is? What, 75th percentile? Because, okay, well, he is higher than that, but come on.
Of watching Hamza's content, it appears he has achieved in the club environment. And now me thinking about this, his features are excellently tailored towards doing extremely well in a club environment. Because when you think about a club, you're thinking it's crowded with very dark lighting. Now in such an environment, there are two things that a woman will first notice about you. First is your height and your body. Even if you're 10 to 30 meters away from a person, you're still going to be able to see the outline of these two factors. Moving in closer, anywhere from 2 to 10 meters, you're going to be able to see features such as somebody's jawline strengths in the modern dating market. It's about else. Finally, moving on to the last person, Lloyd Dixon, also known as the single guy, who is a dating coach with over 100,000 subs. He's starting with the positives. His best feature, in my opinion, is his jawline. A noteworthy part of this is his ramus length. So the ramus, which is this near vertical piece of bone here, Lloyd's is highly visible and has good length, which is very similar to the ideal. Again, similar to some of the other guys, he also has that ideal trapezium-shaped jawline, with sharp and rigid angles. He has the ideal compact midface ratio of 1:1. His hair texture is very good and full of life. He has good eyebrow thickness, and finally his facial hair and lip thickness is also very ideal. Now moving on to the negatives. Firstly, although his eyebrows are a good thickness and length, they have too much of an aggressive, positive eyebrow tilt. So as spoke about earlier, the eyebrows should have a slight upward slant, and an ideal angle for this is going to be roughly 10 degrees. However, Lloyd's are far steeper than this at roughly 25 degrees, which goes too far past the threshold of seductiveness and gives a more aggressive appearance. And in fact, Lloyd himself is very aware of this particular feature. I took a look at his Instagram, and his bio literally states,
"What? That is insane, bro."
He looks like he's perpetually angry. And the main reason being for this is that his positive eyebrow tilt is too aggressive. Next, he has very noticeable eye bags beneath his eyes, and this could be due to aging, lack of sleep, I'm not sure, maybe a bit of both. Next up, he also has those large and round eye orbits that we've already spoken about. He has...
Let's not put those in the same category as Hamza's, though.
There's a noticeable gap in between his two front teeth. And finally, his hairline looks a fraction too rounded. However, I don't think his hairline is receding.
I think he misses a lot of, things. Like, we need to comment on his good eye shape, his positive canthal tilt. We need to comment on high set cheekbones. Like, we need to, he kind of just comments on, 5 things. Maybe that's just for the sake of the length of the video, but I feel like his analysis is It's almost like someone who's been looks maxing for a week could do it, which I guess he does focus more on dating theory rather than like facial aesthetics. But I don't know. I think his analysis could be a lot better. It could be a lot more detailed. It could be a lot more. I think he could consider more positives and more negatives, is basically what I'm seeing.
So after taking all of these into account, my final rating for Lloyd is a 6 out of 10. I think he...
So let's look at this face. Let's remember this face, and then let's look at this. So those are the same. I think he overrated Hamza, man. Maybe it's because they had a podcast together. See, I can understand putting him in this picture even higher than a 6, actually. He looks pretty good here. Then you have this and this. It's not the worst rating. I just think he looks better than Hamza, undoubtedly.
in my opinion, is his jawline. A noteworthy part of this...
Like, that eye region is so much fucking better than Hamza's, and his jaw is, like, better than Hamza's, too. His coloring's better than Hamza's. His nose is better. His ears are better. Like, this guy looks a lot better than Hamza.
Is his ramus length. So the ramus, which is this near vertical piece of bone here, I think he falls right into that high tier normie range. So that's the video, guys, and these are my final...
Okay, so these guys are the same rating. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. I think this and this is subpar compared to this. I think this guy at an 8, again, that's too much. John Anthony, he was pretty on the spot with John Anthony. I'll give him that one, but... And then also, did he touch on Hamza's eyebrow tilt asymmetry? I don't know. I don't know if I recall him doing that. So let's give the final numbers. Let's really look at this. Okay, John Anthony, you can get like a 3.5. Okay, like a 3.5. This guy, I could see him at like a 6.25. It's kind of, I haven't seen enough of him, so I could be wrong with these. Hamza, you're getting like a 5.25 in this image. I think after his surgery, he could be a 5.5. And then this guy, like, we could put him at like a 6.75, maybe 7, in my opinion. That's how I would reorder these ratings. I don't think they're the worst ever. I think he is better than someone like Road to 1% probably, which I have recorded a video analyzing his ratings. I think he's better than Chatify, in my opinion. In terms of like the deviation of his ratings, they make a lot more sense than like putting those 3 people at 6 that all look bad. And then, you know, he's not putting Theo James at a 9.25 like Road to 1%, which is obviously insane. So yeah, I see a consistency in a scale here. I think honestly, if you want a face rating, I'm pretty sure he's honest. I could recommend going to WheatWaffles. He's actually not even a bad face rater. Even though his analysis isn't extremely detailed, I think his ranges make a lot of sense. So that's been Analyzing WheatWaffles, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.